The action by the Supreme Court points up a particularly interesting set of legal circumstances here in Tarrant County. Although the court has ruled and refused to change its ruling that the Sunday closing law is constitutional, no action can be taken in Tarrant County to enforce that law. District Attorney Frank Coffey, Sheriff Lon Evans, and Public Safety Chief Cato Hightower are all currently under a temporary injunction which prevents their taking any action to halt Sunday operation until the issue is heard in Judge Leo Brewster's federal court. A hearing is set on December 10th. Now, just suppose Judge Brewster should find that the requested restraining order is a reasonable request. The situation then would be that although Sunday closing is mandatory by state law, nobody in Tarrant County would have to abide by it. Of course, it's impossible to say how the judge will decide, but until he does, Tarrant County merchants, Supreme Court or no, if they choose to open 7 days a week, can do so without fear of interference from any county officials. Jerry Taff, Channel 8 News, Fort Worth.
Are there indications that past Miss Texas pageants have not been good, that there has been something amiss with them?
There's some question about last year's pageant, and that's what the problem arises. I think it would do well for the investigation to start with the Lubbock people and ask, the media should go directly to the president of that pageant, because this is where the problem started in Nacogdoches and Gatesville, and one or two others have withdrawn from this.
I understand you have received a letter from Lubbock and from other JC organizations around the state. Some of them have withdrawn from the pageant. What is the gist of these letters?
Well, it's just that they're very dissatisfied and that they would never enter another contest with Miss America pageant as long as it's run by the two individuals that it's presently run by, and I'm not going to get involved in any personality fight with them.
Several state officials have recently announced that they were going to run again for the next term. Could it be understood that you will run again too?
Well, this is certainly my plans, and all indications in that direction. And in fact, I mentioned to the members of the House that I would be a candidate for re-election as state representative from the 29th District, and I'd also be a candidate for Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives.
There have been rumors of some active campaigns by other people for the post of Speaker of the House. Have you heard of these, and will you actively fight this?
Well, of course, I've heard comments about other members of the House who would like to become Speaker. I don't think this is an unusual thing. I always like to compliment House members for being ambitious. But by the same token, I think if we examine their ambitions a little closer, we'll find that they'd really like to be Speaker rather than to have a contested race at the present time. In other words, I think most of them are trying to direct their campaigns with the thinking that I might quit or I might take some other job or something along those lines. And they're not fighting me as active candidates.
Charlie, if there is no action by the administration, will your committee reorganize?
There's an excellent possibility of this. We felt that in order to coax some action out of an administration which seemed reluctant to act in either way, other than just by ignoring both sides and hoping the problem would vanish, we felt that a firm coalition of all interested factions on campus to get a solution might produce some action.
Well, first of all, the 60 countries we're now operating in are asking for different kinds of volunteers. Ones with farm backgrounds, agricultural degrees, say, and they're looking for training for their youth in vocational skills and crafts. So we want to recruit craftsmen from the trade unions, Americans of all ages and backgrounds who can serve in the Peace Corps, carpenters, mechanics, electricians, masons, as well as farmers, and people with professional degrees to teach math or science, and experienced school teachers. The Peace Corps really is a program for all Americans to serve in, not just as is the image of the recent college graduate.
Then the emphasis is on skills or experience more so than educational credentials.
That's right. And I think that the Peace Corps also has tended to become a lily white organization. We want members of minority groups. We want some of our Spanish-speaking citizens in the Southwest to go overseas. We think that minority groups, the black Americans in this country, should represent us and help to participate in the building of a better world.
You came in with Secretary Romney the other day. He was one of those who was apparently in favor of removing Mr. Lapin from his head of his presidency of Fannie Mae. What brought it on and why?
I think essentially the press releases pretty well speak for themselves. The board of directors of Fannie Mae, which, like the board of directors of any corporation, has the authority and the responsibility of hiring the executive officers. In this case, Mr. Lapin is the president and chief executive officer of Fannie Mae. And Fannie Mae's board of directors has determined that Mr. Lapin's activities and policies were such that were not in the best interest of the corporation, Fannie Mae.
Excuse me for interrupting, but that's all we've heard is policies and practices. What sort of policies and practices might they likely be talking about?
Well, of course, I was not present at the board meeting, and I don't know what the board discussion was. I'm not a member of the board of directors, so I don't have...
well, generally, what might they be talking about?
I think, in general, there's further statement to the effect from Secretary Romney, and I think from the President, that Mr. Lapin's activities have been somewhat less than cooperative with the Department of Housing.